Hi, I'm Zen and welcome to this video on the death of the mailto and the target attribute of the anchor link. In this video we are going to look at exactly what they are and why we don't use them anymore, and maybe the very few times that we should. So let's run the intro reel and learn all about it. As always, in the description I have the files that I'm using in this video, so if you want to follow along, feel free to do so. Of course, you don't have to if you don't want to. And for reference, I'm using Visual Studio Code and a Chrome browser. But if you want the exact same setup as me, please follow the Getting Started series of videos, of which the first few of those videos will actually help you get the same setup as me. Okay, so let's get into this. In the video, Introduction to Anchor Tags, HTML Links, the href attribute, I spent a lot of time on, funny enough, the href attribute of the anchor element. One of the things I personally did not cover though was the mailto option of the href. So let's have a look at this first before we work out why we shouldn't use it. And here it is in its most simplest form. You can see we still have the anchor tag, the href attribute, but this time it starts off with a mailto and the colon. It is then followed by the email address that we would send it to, and of course we've got the closing anchor tag and with the source or destination description in the middle. Like I said, this is the most basic version of it. We are able to add many things to this, including subject lines, additional recipients, etc. So a more fuller example would look like this. Here you can see it's quite a long one. Again, we have the starting part of the mailto. And then if you watched the previous video where we saw how we could send name value pairs, you might be able to notice it here. We've got the question mark, and then we have the value, in which case here it's the CC. Okay, and then we've got a bundle of addresses that we're sending it to with the and B2C, so the blind carbon copy. And then we have the subject value here, and even the body, where obviously that will fit in the body of the message. And once again, we have the text that people see and the closing tag. You see there's a lot going on in there, and this will all work fine. Here we have the page running, and if I click on there, you can see it's requesting to open up an email client. So since it all works, what's the problem? Now this may end up being controversial, and I'm very happy to be corrected on this. So please do let me know in the comments below if you agree or disagree with my belief here. But I personally believe that the way we use email today is very different than what it was in the past. You see, back in the day, and I am talking about in the late 1990s and the early to mid 2000s, we used email clients all of the time. We tended to have the POP3 store and forward system. So emails were downloaded to the computer and deleted from the web server once we downloaded it. This forced us into having an email client due to the number of emails that we're being forced to manage. Nowadays, however, since I use multiple machines, including phones, laptops and desktops, I need access to my emails from all of these devices. So I use the IMAP system, where the emails are stored on the email server, and it is only when I click on the email title itself, a copy of that email is downloaded to that device, but the original email stays on the server. And this is true for all of my email accounts. Even my paid job emails are IMAP based, so I can access them from home using a browser interface. I would say my email usage is really split in two. I use my mobile phone for reading emails and clicking on verification links, such as opening up accounts, whereas a series of emails that I need to make, I use either my desktop or my laptop to actually write them. And it is this reason why I don't think we should really be using the mailto link anymore. It hasn't been depreciated or anything like that. I just don't think it's as user friendly as it used to be. When I see a link that says contact us and I click on it, I expect to see an online contact form on their site, not having an app being opened on my machine, which I'll be honest, still feels kind of like an invasion of privacy. Does this mean though that you should never use it? Well, I'm going to say no to that. I think we just need to be more explicit when we do use it and give people an alternative option at the same time. You know, something like this. This way, we are giving them complete control and choice on how they do it. They may click on the link and open the app, or copy the address that is shown and paste it wherever they want. I don't believe that this has any more issues to it regarding having your emails being harvested and spammed, since anyone who's using a web scraper will be going into the code anyway and would pick up the email address from there, as they would find it in the link of the mailto. So again, I ask you, do you agree or disagree with this? this? Do you think this is a good idea? Do you prefer the idea of having a mailto so you can click on it and it open up your machine? I appreciate that on our mobile phones it's probably is a good thing to use, and a lot of people do use their mobile phones almost exclusively for this stuff, but I still think it's not as nice as it could be. Like I say, please do let me know in the comments below. So let's move on to our next one, which is the target attribute of the anchor tag. So the target attribute looks like this. This is barely used anymore. Now it can technically have 5 values. Okay, so here we can see we've got blank. You can also have underscore self, underscore parent, underscore top, and also the name of the frame, which I'll be explaining in a moment. The truth of the matter is 3 of those values we don't use anymore. There's only 2 left, which is blank and self. And well, since self is the default setting, we don't really use that anymore. It's really only blank which gets to be used. So what exactly does it do? Well, it is used to tell the browser where the link should load. Sounds a bit weird. Well, let's have a look at this in action. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click on the link we've got at the bottom, which is this test here. And so it's going to open up a page called Pointless. So we click on that, and as you can see, it's opened up a new tab. Okay, and I can click back and back again. Each time I click on it, it will open up a new tab. Now, if you look at the Pointless page, as we've got here, we can see we're using target self. And as you saw, whenever I click back on this one, it loads back into the same page. So the one in index where it's blank, it opens up a new tab. And when it says self, it opens it up in itself, so just like a normal behavior. And that's important, like we said before. The self is the default behavior of a HTML link, which is why we don't use it. It's pointless. The only one that we use, like I've already said several times, is this blank one. So this has some genuine uses. Now, the first thing I should note, you can't choose if it's a new tab or a whole new window. That is a behavior done by the browser itself, which you cannot change or have access to. At least not yet. Maybe that will change, who knows. So the use case for this is really for if you are linking to an external website or to something that you want to be printed out and you still want them to have access to the original page. That is the real and only time you want to use this. Okay, you don't want to be using it willy-nilly because it'll just annoy people. And on top of this, there is a security risk with this. Now, I don't have time to go into this properly, okay, but essentially using the blank, especially to an external website, does leave you open to bad actors. And no, I don't mean Dwayne Johnson, I do mean hackers here. Okay, there are some naughty exploits they can do with this. Okay, and to stop that, we need to add a little bit extra to this. And here it is here. It's rel for relation, and we're actually going to be talking about this in the next video. But you see, we've got no opener and no referrer. Like I said, we don't actually have time to go into what the exploit is. If you want to look it up, it's called reverse tab nabbing. And although I think most browsers have been able to stop this attack by default, it's still very worth having it in just to be sure. So what about the other 3 values that I've talked about? Well, now children, it's time for a little history lesson. The target attribute pre-HTML5 was a very common thing indeed, since it dealt with an issue that arose from using frames, not the evil iframes that we have today, but its predecessors, the original frames, which were, well, still very evil. If you don't know what I'm talking about, well, very briefly, it used to be very common for web pages to be made out of page frames in a system very similar to the way that we use PHP or other server-side coded websites today. In that, the dynamic web pages that you see today are normally made of at least 3 parts, these being the header, base and footer. Have a look at this video link here where we are converting a base HTML page to 3 PHP pages to see how we deal with it, well, surprisingly enough, in PHP. The difference is that with server-side technology, only a single page is passed back to the browser. With a frame-based website, however, it wasn't. And man, was it messy. You would need a web page to hold the frame set itself. Then you would need other pages for those frames. Yep, you heard me, a page just to hold the other pages. In fact, that is what we can see here. So this is the page called frames HTML, which is the frame master page. As you can see, it's got a frame set with some columns and row settings, a bit like a table. And then within that, we have 2 frames here and the ending of that frame set. And then we have another frame here, which is we've called name. And then finally, we have a bit here called no frames. And the reason for this is to make sure that if the browser didn't support frames, we could still give them some information. What do the other pages look like? Well, here is frame 1. You can see it's just an extremely basic page. Okay, here is obviously where we put in a logo. Frame 2 is where we've got the navigation, so a classic unordered list navigation system. And frame 3 would of course be the main content of the page. So if we go back to the navigation, the frames 2, and we look at the 2 links that we've actually got running, we have one here for target equals main. So this is the frame name style, okay? And then we've got another one here called top. These link to, again, we go back into the frames.html. We can see here that frame 2 has a name of nav and our frame 3 has a name of main. And so that is what we're looking at here. That is the frame name. So what does this top actually mean? Well, I'm going to be honest with you, I've never really understood it. The answer from the internet gives it opens the linked document in the full body of the window. So to me, it sounds like it is the normal window, such as self in a normal link. But it's very difficult to get any more information on the internet other than that, partly because, like I say, we don't use it anymore. As I said before, this is valid HTML4. All these pages are valid, and this is what it will look like when you open up the frames.html. And as we remember, like I said before, this one targets main. So when we click on link 1 here, you can see it actually does load that page in there. And if we click on link 2, you can see it reloads the page. And in fact, if we look at the code to this by pressing F12, we can see it's just a normal page. So the top seems to break out of the frames and redoes the whole page as normal. So that might have been handy if you're linking to a new website outside of your own. Like I said, these files are available for you to download free of charge for you to play with, and I do recommend you have a little bit of fun with them just so you get an idea on it. We're not going to be using these. Nobody uses these anymore. Iframes are slightly different, and again, I still don't recommend using them unless you're using them for adverts. Frames, as I said before, since HTML version 5, frames are no longer supported. So the parent, top, and frame name are no longer used. So it's only the self, which is default, so we don't use that, which only leaves us with the blank option. So that is the only time you're going to use the blank option, is when we're linking to an external site or to a very specific page where there might be files or PDFs that people are going to either download or print. And it works very well for these reasons. But don't forget to add these rel values so that it's all nice and safe. And believe it or not, my job here is done. This has perhaps been one of the shortest videos I have done for a long time. If you found this video useful, please do consider liking and subscribing. You know how it works, and it means the absolute world to me, and it really helps to promote my channel. Thank you for seeing me all the way. As always, if there's a video you want me to do, or if you want to ask me anything, please whack it in the comment section, as I do honestly read every single comment I get. I'll see you guys next time. This is Zen, signing off.